So the reason that we're learning to factor is that now we are working with what's called quadratic equations. Quadratic equations. The standard form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And how we know that this is quadratic is because of this squared term. When it has a square, it means it's quadratic. Well, the problem is that we don't know how to solve for, in this case, say w, when it's got a square. So factoring allows us to take those w's apart so then we can solve for them singly. So that's what factoring is all about, so that we can solve. That's what algebra is all about, solving equations. So if you look at this, we have a quadratic equation. It's an equation because it has an equal sign. It's quadratic because it has squared. I need to check first, is it in standard form? Yes, it is, because everything is on one side and the 0 is on the other. So I want to make sure these are in descending order, so 2 and 1. Let's now ignore this, the equals 0, and just do exactly what we've been doing with our factoring. So rule number 1, any greatest common factors. So what I need you to do is stop the video, try this, then come back, and you can see how you've done. So first, I'm going to look at the numbers. Well, the biggest number I can get out of each of those is 2. So I'll factor a 2 out. Then I look and see, does each one have at least one w? Well, yes, they do. And in fact, that's all this one has. So w is all I can factor out. Okay? And now I see what's left. So from this one, I have 7w. And from this one, I have 4. Now, in order to actually solve this for w, we have something called the zero factor property. It comes from the idea that if I am multiplying two things together, okay, and the two things multiplied together equals 0, that means that either my x is 0, or my y is 0, or both of them are 0. So this is a factor, and they're each equal 0. So what I do with this now, this is a factor, and this is a factor, so I'm going to set each of those factors equal to 0 separately. So 2w equals 0, and 7w plus 4 equals 0. Notice how I spread them apart, keep them far apart, so we don't clutter each other up. Okay? So now, we're back to just regular linear equations we've been doing all semester long. So I need to get the w by itself, so I'll divide by 2. If I do that on one side, I have to do it on the other. 0 divided by 2 is 0. That one's done. First, I'm going to move the 4 to the other side. Remember, when it goes across the equal sign, its sign changes. So we would have 7w equals -4. Now I need to divide by 7 to get the w by itself. If I do that on one side, I'll do it on the other, and I get w equals -4/7. So my final answer is written like this. W equals -4/7, or, that's what the comma means, 0. So in this case, we have two answers. So when we have quadratics, if this is a square, we can expect two answers. If it's a 3, we can expect 3 answers. If it's a 4, we can expect 4 answers. There is one exception to that, and we'll get to that later. Let's do another example. So rule number, again, this is a quadratic equation. It's got more than 2. It is an equation because it's an equal sign. So, and it's in standard form because this is zeros on this side. So I'm going to ignore this and just factor this exactly like I always do. Okay? And I should be expecting 3 answers by the time I'm done. So, rule number 1, any greatest common factors. Well, this one doesn't even have a number, so I can't get any numbers out. And this one doesn't even have a letter, so I can't get any letters out. So no rule number 1. Rule number 2, is it a binomial? Remember, we're using our factoring rule sheet. Go back and get that out if you don't have it. It is not a binomial. It has 4 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4. So our next question in rule number 2, is it a trinomial? No, we already figured it has 4 terms. So now we will go back to rule number 4, factoring by grouping. So I'm going to underline these 2, okay? I can get a t squared out. That leaves me t plus 6. Now remember, I bring this sign down, no matter what it is, unless this one was negative, and we'll talk about that some other time. Okay? But if I'm factoring a negative out, it's going to change the signs of both of those. And out of this, I can also factor out a 4. So that leaves me with t plus 6 equals 0. Do remember to bring the equals 0 down, or once you get this completely factored, you forget, oh yeah, now I still have a little extra to do. Okay? Now the t plus 6 is our greatest common factor, so we factor that out. We always pull it out to the left in the front. And then what I'm left with is t squared minus 4. Now, I want you to close your eyes because this next thing you don't know yet. You won't know it until after you do rule number 2, but it was the only one problem I could get with 4 terms. So I'm going to go ahead and factor this. After you have learned rule 2, you can come back and see if you can do it yourself. You're just going to have to trust me on this one. So now this is fully factored. I have 3 factors, so I will set each of these equal to 0 separately. T plus 6 equals 0. T plus 2 equals 0. T minus 2 equals 0. And solve each of these. And so my final answer is going to be t equals negative 6. Again, the comma means or, and then we write it plus or minus 2. That's 3 separate answers. Negative 6, positive 2, and negative 2. But this is how we write it. T equals negative 6 or plus or minus 2. So that's all for this video for right now. Now we'll go on to rule 3.